Setup. Done. All right. All right. Recently, I had an argument with someone who spewed all of the usual arguments against monarchy as if he was a machine reading lines of code. For all I know, he was a bot. These days, you never know. But regardless, this particular sheep inspired me to make today's main topic about exactly that, the usual criticisms of monarchy. First one, it's outdated. Whoever says this needs to explain what that even means. What they most likely mean is that monarchy simply isn't popular anymore, which is absolutely irrelevant. When it comes to human nature, there's no such thing as outdated. We are the same species today that we were 10,000 years ago. Besides, democracy is nothing new either. When you think of the Age of Kings, the medieval period, the Middle Ages, or the Dark Ages, as some people call it, just remember that there were democracies before that era, such as the Roman Republic, Athens, Carthage, and even India. Next argument, monarchs are inbred. Yes, this is a problem, but not nearly as severe or unavoidable as people want to assume. Inbreeding among monarchs only occurred because marriages have always been used as political tools, but in no way is it required. A king can marry any random peasant girl as he pleases. Even if an absolute monarch were somehow not free to marry as he pleases, the fact remains that most monarchs were not that inbred. A recent example is Elizabeth II, who lived well into her 90s, as did her husband, Prince Philip, who lived to be nearly 100. The couple were third cousins and second cousins once removed. Their son, the current King Charles III, is 76. So if you picture monarchs as having webbed feet and distorted faces and dying off before they turn 30 years old, that's simply not true. Next criticism, what if the king does bad thing? Well, what if anyone in power does bad thing? Can you, dear audience member, list a single time off the top of your head that someone in your democratic government was held accountable for corruption or bad decisions? If you said Nixon, that is false. Nixon was not behind Watergate, that is a myth. The press simply made him look accountable. He didn't resign out of guilt, he resigned because of bad press. And besides, he resigned, he wasn't deposed, and he was immediately pardoned by his successor anyway. So apart from that, try naming anyone held to account for the unconstitutional COVID lockdowns. Do you still believe we're going to get the Jeffrey Epstein client list? Democracy doesn't hold power to account. That is a fantasy, and it's time for you all to wake up. Next criticism. It's an unserious job. According to what? Movies and HBO shows? An absolute monarch has the most stressful job in the nation. Visible absolute power means you can't blame anyone else for something going wrong. And far too many people count on you to do your job, especially the elite class. Prima nocta. Do you guys know what that is?
Yes, but you may
Vaguely.
want to just explain that for the audience.
Well, I was hoping you guys would, just so I'm not talking too much. But anyway, prima nocta, which is on the first night of somebody's wedding, the king gets to sleep with the bride first. That is a complete myth. So next point. It's impossible. Monarchy is impossible in modern times. How, I ask. I hear this all the time, and I'm still waiting for anyone to explain what that even means. Regardless, there are absolute monarchies to this very day, such as Dubai or Saudi Arabia, and these states are far more stable than any modern democracy, not to mention wealthy. Next criticism. The people have no say in a monarchy. Well, the people have no say anyway. Go back to what I already said about how people never hold power to account in a democracy. Power will always do what it pleases. Democracy is nothing more than a smokescreen. It's a pacifier, like one you'd give to a baby. How about your Second Amendment shall not be infringed right? Well, that's infringed all the time. Or how about the First Amendment? To this day, if you openly praise the Nazis, for example, you will lose your job, and possibly worse. Not one social media platform allows you to say anything you want, and the precious Constitution doesn't correct them, ever. Next criticism. Autocracy of any kind is tyrannical. Well, the Pax Romana would beg to differ. In fact, most historical kings were not tyrants. The slogan, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, is easy to memorize and easy to believe, but it's a complete lie. Tyrannical absolute rulers are the exception, not the rule. That is, when they attain power via birthright. That is, when they attain power via birthright. If they attain absolute power via egalitarian and democratic processes, they are almost guaranteed to be tyrannical, such as Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, Kim Il-sung, and I can never pronounce this guy's name, Syngman Rhee, South Korea guy. Everybody conveniently forgets that Hitler, the great Satan of our time, rose to power via democracy. Next criticism, cost to the taxpayer. This is completely made up garbage. Every cost associated with kings also applies to democracies. Compare palaces to the White House. Compare tax-funded international travel for a king compared to Air Force One. The plane itself is literally a household name. The list goes on. But now imagine not having to pay taxes for countless politicians, their 24/7 private security, and not to mention democratic bureaucracy, agencies, departments, and the literal billions that go into election cycles. With an absolute ruler, you get the king and his crew. The only tax the people pay is to the king. His lords and soldiers get their funding from him. Not to mention, his lords are free to earn their own revenue their own way, as is the king himself. He can engage in the market just as much as anyone. Point is, it couldn't be more obvious that democracy requires bloated tax expenditures, while an absolute monarch has far fewer things that need tax funds. A simpler system is less expensive, plain and simple. Almost done. Next criticism. Hereditary succession leads to incompetent rulers. This is absurd. Democracy is a literal popularity contest that requires no credentials of any kind. To win an election, you basically just have to be old enough. So this argument is massively hypocritical at best. And besides, kings are raised literally from birth in the ways of politics. They are trained to do the job from birth. And if a king is too young to rule, a regent substitutes for them until they are old enough. This argument is too ridiculous to even take seriously. Next criticism. It's anti-meritocracy. I can barely say this word. It's not a meritocracy.
Meritocratic.
Meritocratic. There we go. It's anti-meritocratic. Blech. Monarchy is the closest humans can get to a proper meritocracy. Remember that democracy is shadow oligarchy, and no one becomes successful unless the elite class allow them to be. It's a literal club, and you can't be part of it without an invitation. You can be extremely intelligent, but if you have views that the elite class don't like, they will do whatever they can. They will do whatever they can get away with to prevent you from rising. Power is always top down. Success is always top down. In an absolute monarchy, though, there are no bureaucracies, agencies, and departments you have to appeal to, let alone billionaires who can just buy their portion of the government. You pretty much only have to impress your local lord or the king himself, and they will likely want you part of their power structure. All you have to do is not disrespect the king and prove yourself. But in our age of shallow oligarchy, also called democracy, nobody cares what you can do. They only care about what they can exploit from you. In a kingdom, though, your success means it's the king's success as well. This is one thing that movies and TV shows get right. There's some mighty warrior who slayed 100 enemies in one battle, and just for that alone, the king goes, "I want to meet this man," and then he bestows various honors upon him. That is realistic. But what do you get in a democracy? Oh, he doesn't like minorities, so don't let him rise. Last criticism that I can think of is no accountability. I already covered this. The people holding power accountable, the power being held accountable by the people is a complete laughable lie. See my earlier points. All right, I'm done. Oh, that was exhausting.
Honestly, you provided a damn good debunking of basically all those myths. Like people really don't want to. I guess when it comes to that, like just the NPC that you were talking to, yeah, you could immediately tell that they are not the type of person to go out of their way to search for new information.
Yeah.
Like they also try not to verify said new information either. But if they're already not trying to search for new information, you can make a correct inference in saying that they don't know how to verify information either.
Yeah. Cairo or Autist, anything you want to say? Contribute? Anything I missed
Sure. Well, not something that you missed,
or
but
got
something
wrong?
that should also be. I mean, I wasn't even going to go that direction either. I agree with Scary. I think your list and your rebuttals of those examples were pretty spot on. But something I want to point out is in the case of where tyrannies have been prevalent, since there have been tyrannies, yes, even monarchies, but the neat thing about those is whenever, and we've discussed this previously, is whenever there has been an unrighteous ruler or ruling class, as long as there is a righteous, a virtuous counter elite to usurp them and replace them with good leaders, there is always, always hope for a rebound for the kingdom from bad to better.
I
Yeah.
mean, you've got a point there.
Funny enough, it's also where we get the vast majority of um, folk tales and stories, at least as far as old legends from just really Western Europe is what I have in mind. I'm thinking folk heroes like Robin Hood and such, for example. And I understand the actual history behind those kind of stories is a bit more complicated, but you get the picture.
What about you, Okaro? Anything you wanted to add?
The only thing I wanted to add is I think it was a week or two ago, just out of curiosity, since people constantly like to say, you know, this person was a tyrant, this person was a tyrant. I don't know. I spent like 6, 7 hours just going through the history of various tyrant monarchs, and most of them, if you look at the various writings and the people who are calling them a tyrant, it's the elite of that time that didn't like the ruler, because I guess using Nero as an example, I mean, did he do a lot of wrong? Yes, but most of his wrong was towards the Senate and the other elites. The people of the time more or less liked him. So, in a way, you can't argue he's being tyrannical if the majority of the country still like him.
Yeah.
Even if he was a wicked person, doesn't mean it's not the same thing as him being an incompetent ruler.
Oh, he was pretty incompetent, but that's a different story.
Or as us Devil May Cry fans would say, he was dead weight.
We're not laughing at that.
Ah, come on! I mean, it's true. The Emperor Nero was quite literally imperial deadweight, and Nero in Devil May Cry 5 gets called deadweight all the time. Yeah, it's clever.
We can get into that a different time.
What, I, what I'm laughing at is like how hard you're trying to get a laugh out of that. Like, come on, guys, that's funny.
I'm just not familiar with what Scurvy's referencing, so
I guess I'm the only Devil May Cry fan in here. I feel stupid.
And I think when it comes to like kings being tyrants, I think that's really just it's in the same vein as when people say, like, oh, the founding fathers had slaves. And you guys know I'm no fan of the founding fathers, but that is a stupid criticism. Like, when you look at the past from, like, or through the lens of the present, it's easy to go, well, that was a bad person because they don't fit my modern standards. And so, like, I wonder how many quote unquote bad kings were really just like, you're not understanding what went on. You don't know the minutia. You don't know. You just think, like, well, they went to war a lot, so they must have been bad. That is how most people interpret a lot of kings that they call tyrants.
Yeah, a lot of the time, yeah, even if I guess if you're looking at the writings of like from a neutral party, a lot of the times people won't go into depth with the works. Like they'll read maybe a few pages and then make their assumption.
Yeah.
Before firearms started becoming prevalent in warfare, people generally had a much different attitude towards war than we do now.
Yeah, even
Something else
in Christian
just to
countries.
keep in mind. Yep.
I mean, in general, at first, no one liked using firearms because they were seen as dishonorable.
I mean, I think they
But
still
eventually,
are, but if only if you're the first one firing. But if you're dealing with someone who's about to fire at you, then sure. But I think in general, like, the most honorable way to fight a war is with swords. Like, just go to a field and just, use swords. But
Bare
That's-
knuckle
Hey,
combat.
that's never gonna come back, so no point in bringing it up, I guess.
Bare knuckle combat.
I mean,
I was
Swords are
more
okay.
so
I
What?
mean, that was the whole point of why, when muskets were a thing, why they stood in a line and fired at each other. It wasn't like any kind of strategic thing. It was, stand in front of the person, you're gonna fight, and it was seen as, I guess, the honorable compromise between them.
Well, I was more so referencing the attitudes people had, where throughout history, people weren't as mortified at the idea of fighting other peoples as we are now, just because the kinds of brutality we've been able to discover through our current technology was just not as prevalent the way it was then. Even if they were still pretty brutal in their own ways, it's not like anything that we've learned how to do when fighting each other in the past couple centuries or so.
I mean, yeah, kind of, but I think it's also more that society nowadays has become far more feminist than it ever has been. Back
Yeah,
then,
that too.
you could break a leg or lose a leg, and it would just be seen as, well, that's the cost of war.
Yeah. I mean that more so has to do with how they view death, but we're kind of getting off topic.
Yeah,
It was a different world when every nation was a kingdom, and I don't think we're getting that far off topic, because what came with that is everything was more honorable. Everything. It's not that technology never advanced, or that it did advance and we just refused to acknowledge that. There was more honor. Sure, there was more violence too, but there was still more honor. Everybody had more honor.
It was also a lot more masculine too.
Yeah.
I mean, masculine, more personal responsibility. You didn't look to the state to save your butt.
Yeah.
You look to your community, you look to the local church, you look to your friends. We don't have that anymore.
Yeah. Democracy just
I
makes
also
people.
think
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I also think the idea that we've become less violent, as we were just talking about, I think that's a lie, a myth. Our societies, our nations now are just much better at hiding the violence as well as the depravity that people are doing than they were, well, when people you guys were saying, had more honor. If anything, it's only gotten worse, and we're far more violent and brutal, and quite frankly, repulsive than we were even throughout history, where we're supposed to believe we were, quote unquote, more violent. Just because why? It was more common to lose an arm or a leg? Really? Maybe that's just me.
I
Well,
don't
you
know.
have a
Like,
point.
uh, there are things like duels, and a lot of disputes in general were settled through violence, like just between one man and another man. I don't know. I can't
Sure,
say
but
for
that's
sure, but it seems like it was more violent back then.
In a way, but at the same time, he has a point that modern day we have just gotten better at hiding it, or at least putting it like under the rug, so to speak. Because
Before the advent of Live Leak.
very funny. But essentially, like back then, like if you did something heinous, you know, you'd be punished like hard labor, death penalty, something to fit the crime. Nowadays, let's say you get into a fight with a bunch of people, you break arms, whatever. What's your punishment? You sit in a prison cell for an X amount of time and don't really get punished or learn anything. And then, you can just get out and do it all over again.
We hear a lot of
We've
stories
kind
about that.
Yeah, we've kind of just we've more spread out the violence than what used to be back then, where it would just happen at one time and then it would be done over with.
That's how men solve things. You ever notice that? Like women, they hold on to the smallest. They turn the smallest slight into an eternal grudge, and they just like it's basically an eternal war from the slightest slight, and it's always like it's gossip and it's telling lies or even telling like embarrassing or bad truths. They never let it go, and they get their aggression out through like turning people against you, and it goes on forever. But like when men when men have issues with each other, it's just quick violence, and no matter who wins, it's over.
Yeah.
and sometimes you're both friends at the end.
Yeah, that happens a lot too. It's just the respect of like, yeah, we're both willing to fight. We're not
I
a bunch
mean,
of we're not both cowards or anything. Just the
I
respect
mean,
that comes from that. Yeah.
I mean, you see it a lot in history where, like, particularly with Rome and Carthage, the two hated each other, but a lot of their generals respected each other. They couldn't exactly be friends given their position, but they didn't hate them on like a individual level.
Yeah. Even Hannibal and Scipio. I don't know if you'd call them friends at the end, but in the end, they at least were on good
They were,
enough terms to
yeah,
like banter and whatnot with each other, like just talk about the good old days, even though they were sworn enemies.
yeah, they were the type of people where they'd fight, bicker, do all that with each other. But if, like, say, a third person came along and disrespected in one of them, the other one would chip in and say, "No, no, no, you listen here."
Bringing this back to monarchy, that's the other thing is monarchy is also the most honorable form of government in terms of what it incentivizes and the kind of people who usually find their ways higher up in positions of power through that hierarchy. Assuming, of course, the king is honorable himself, he himself has incentive to make sure that the members of his crew who run things with him are themselves they that they themselves have some ethic or code of honor as well. And that's not something you can get when your leaders are determined by popularity contest.
Well, that's because monarchy is a societal contract. It's reciprocal. The king looks out for, the Lord, and expects him to do what he basically pays him to do or gives him the privileges to do. And the Lord does what the king wants, but also expects the king to let him have his privileges and what has been agreed upon. Overall, an honorable king, like you said, wants someone who's just like him. It's based at that point because it's mainly someone he doesn't have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, the interesting thing about monarchy is the the power structure. It's really trying to think of how to articulate this.
I guess.
It's the king is really just there. Sorry, Scurry. Yeah, I'm just trying to piece together my thoughts here. The king is really just there as a last resort. I guess that's why it was possible for a lot of people, including elites, to think that the king is just a sloth, does nothing. Because, like, in a healthy society, your king, your leader in general, is not supposed to be all that active. He's really just there as a stabilizer and a last resort between conflicting parties, really.
Yeah,
Or
he's
like,
mainly
or I
there
need
just
emergency funds for something, or I need emergency troops for something. Last resort, he's not supposed to be active in your day-to-day life. And because we're so democracy brained, and because democracy by definition means everyone has to be involved in politics, no one can understand that we're not all supposed to be involved in politics.
Exactly.
We're supposed to think of politics as like something we have to deal with when it comes, but it's not supposed to be a daily occurrence. Your life isn't supposed to revolve around it. And it's the same with a king. He's not actively involved in your life unless he has to be, unless like you have no other option than to bring him into the picture.
yeah, because if you look at history with serfs or even freemen, the king was like a mythical figure. They'd only ever see the local lord, maybe the neighboring lords. But the king, that was like a visit from God if he ever showed up. It was unheard of.
Yeah, exactly.
All because the kings were spending more time minding their own businesses when they could, such as being with their families, being with their wives and helping raise their children, their successors.
Yeah, and that leads me to so the guy who inspired me to make this the topic for today. He kept saying that like what I want, like the reason I want a monarchy is because I just want someone to submit to. And I tried to explain to this moron, in a way, I'm kind of a libertarian without the retardation of it. Like, that's what monarchy is. It's libertarianism in a practical way. Or in a, like, if libertarianism were both possible and practical, that's monarchy. I want a system where politics is not my everyday life, where I don't think about politics most of the time. I can just focus on my own property, my own family, and the most I ever have to deal with is the local lord.
I
Like I
mean, that's
said,
how I got
a
here.
king is just, he's off in the distance. I don't have to think about him or deal with him most of the time, if ever. That's my ideal situation for me personally. Being able to
I mean,
live
you
my
have
own life separated from politics. Leave politics to the elites and their boss. That's what a monarch is, really, when you think about it. He's just the boss of the elites. That's what I like so much about it.
I mean, you have a point. Look at the modern equivalent when you look at corporations or companies. How often does, you know, the bottom rung on the rank and file workers ever see or interact with the CEO?
Yep.
Rarely, right? If at all.
Essentially, never. Not unless the CEO is visiting the store, and that's maybe a once in a million kind of thing. likely something you'll never see. Like just like if the king visited your village, it would, yeah, it can happen, but it'd be rare. With and as the worker, you don't sit there and go, okay, what's the CEO doing today? But you know, in democracy, what we do now, that's basically what we're doing.
Yeah, it's incredible how poisoned everyone's mind is when it comes to politics. It doesn't even occur to people like, hey, this isn't supposed to be your everything. You're not supposed to be thinking about this stuff all the time. People would rather, these days, people would rather obsess over politics than building a family or just being more involved with their family or even their friends. Everyone wants to create a utopia. One of the things I hate about democracy, it kind of makes people behave this way. You have to. That's what being a voter is. You have to vote. You have to be involved. No. Even if the people, the sheep, were competent enough to be involved, it's still not healthy. It's not healthy for anyone, mentally or physically for that matter.
No, it's not healthy because if you look back on history, a lot of the kings, good or bad, a lot of them were stressed, tired, you know, maybe overweight, but generally not through a lack, not through gluttony, but because, they were sedentary. They couldn't go around. They couldn't go on like a morning jog every day. They had to sit, do paperwork, go through meetings, constantly, be in the position of we have to do politics to where the average villager, even a citizen in a city, most were fit because they didn't have that lifestyle. They could go around, move, unlike the king or one of the local lords.
I could mind if I interject here.
Go ahead.
So, there was like a period in my life where I actually was thinking about this quite frequently because like the amount of stress that we kind of give ourselves in modern day society, it's crazy. And then you compare that to how people live. Like it was hard work, but the stressors of the era were far more, I guess, manageable, and they didn't worry about everything all at once. And then that's a big reason as to why they were a lot more physically fit, because they weren't constantly like on edge about everything like all at once. Like we have many a study about stress and cortisol and though and that hormone and its effects. Like it is, like we know that stress ain't exactly a good thing for us to be dealing, for us to be constantly dealing with. And politics is very much a stressor, one of the biggest stressors I could think of. um, and so yeah, no doubt the kings are going to look a little bit older than their age, so to speak. It's because when you're dealing with stress all the time, you actually start to age, because
A lot.
cortisol also lowers like testosterone as well in men. That's the one of the last hormones you should want, so to speak, to be flowing through you.
Yeah, and I guess to go on more to your point, what are the local, I guess, stressors for like the average serf or a citizen or a peasant? Make sure there's food on the table. Make sure work's done for the day. The family's happy. You know,
Hmm.
simple things that they know they can do or get complete. They're not going to look at something 2, 3 months down the line and go, "Oh my God, is that really going to happen?" and just stress on it without being able to do anything about it.
Basically.
I mean, I think a good example at the moment is the age verification stuff. That's like, at least for the U.S., it's like a year away at least, like law-wise. But we see people panicking right now. Can they affect it or change it?
Nope.
But they're still going to sit there and stress over it.
Exactly.
I
To
got
your point, Cairo, exactly.
yeah, I got into so one of my brothers, he he's a devout Democrat. He loves democracy, and even though so we had it was supposed to be just a debate, but it kind of just turned into an argument. But that just happens between brothers. But one of his arguments against me, and I threw everything I could at him, like, historically, it's by far the most stable system. It just, in every way, it's better. He was still of the opinion that democracy's better. We just have to find a way to perfect it. But anyway, one of his criticisms was it's too much stress on the king. I was like, you call that an argument?
Good.
What the hell? It's too much stress for one person, is what he said exactly. And I just thought, so? If it works, someone has to make that sacrifice. Like, you're willing to
It's better.
compromise the entire nation because you don't want one person stressed out? Get out of here.
I mean, one person being stressed out is better than 10 million.
Yeah.
Well, and why I just said, maybe why I just stopped. Excuse me. The reason why that may be good is if the weight of your kingdom's on your shoulders, and everyone's looking to you to do your job well. If you're stressed out about making sure you're doing that right, you have less reason to mess it up, at least intentionally.
Yeah,
True.
I didn't realize that until just now when you said that. Yeah, if he's super stressed out, that means he's trying his best to do a good job. I mean,
And even then,
you could try to argue that, hey, presidents get stressed out and they visibly age too, but like they're dealing with constant like power struggles. That's not the same thing. An absolute ruler, when literally everything is on him, it's good that he's stressed out. That means he's trying to do a good job versus like, I belong to a political party and I have to deal with the opposition every single day. It's not the same kind of stress. It's not the same justification.
and even then, occasionally, if the king, like, if the stress is affecting his health, he has counselors where he can delegate some tasks to, maybe take a day or two to rest, recuperate, and then get back to it. Or he can do work and vacation at the same time as he tours the land, as kings usually did. They'd go through the land, check on everything, check on the lords. It was both work and vacation at the same time, because he could just move around and do it that way.
Yeah, that's the thing. As long as he's doing his job well, he's not inherently restricted to any kind of solid work schedule in so much as he's able to delegate the time he has to do what he needs and balance that with what he wants to do.
You know what's ironically the greatest proof that monarchy is the supreme system? You know what's ironically the best proof of that, besides just looking at history and seeing that it lasts longer than all the other systems? Is actually communism. Because you'll notice communism can't stay away from dictators. And it's like, okay, if you guys want this, like, everyone's equal, there are no caste systems, there are no differences in class, classless society, everyone's equal, and most ideally there's no money, just everything's free, there's no hierarchy at all. But when you try to implement that, what do? You basically have a monarchy, but it's like a dirty version of monarchy. So even the most egalitarian, like hardcore believers in equality still think like, well, the only way to achieve this is through monarchy.
I mean, even in communism, let's say, you have a communist country. There's still going to be a class because someone still has to enforce communism.
Yeah.
I think it's too generous to even refer to it as a dirtied monarchy, when in actuality, it's really just another form of elite with no one to keep them in check. As you notice, with dictators, they never run they never run their systems alone.
Yeah.
There's no one they answer to. So the dictator themselves, as well as their advisors and councils they have in their party, they're running amok and doing whatever they want in so much as they're able to with their people and their nations. But because it's not actually a monarchy, there's no one above them to keep them in check. So we really shouldn't even refer to it as a dirty monarchy, because it doesn't even resemble a shadow of a monarchy at all, because it's just elites ruling.
Yeah, what I really meant was like that it they always like lean in the direction of that system just to get that egalitarian result. Like they gravitate towards concentrating power into one person. It's a
They recognize
bastardization.
hierarchy.
It's a bastardization, but really, yeah, like what you said, it's just more of the very thing they're against. It's just more class, more inequality, a bigger gap between the people and the elites than before. But yeah, my point was just like, what tool do they use? They basically try to use monarchy as a tool. Of course, they don't go about it correctly at all, but like one person wielding power. There's obviously merit in that. One person wielding power. They just do it all stupid and dirty. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just bad at articulating this point because I don't want to sully the name of monarchy. It's clearly not a monarchy, but maybe I'm just not making sense.
I would say dictatorship, communism. I think. I mean, yes, they have hierarchies similar to monarchy, but I wouldn't say it's a bastardization or something like that. I would say they're more very selfish versions of monarchy, because the king stands for the whole country. A dictator or the communist leader are only in it for themselves and the power they can get. They're not looking to empower the people or empower the country. It's solely them and maybe even their allies.
Yeah, and even dictators have someone to blame. That's it goes back to what you said, autist, about like they don't really rule alone. That's true. They still keep like parliament or something, or the politburo or whatever the fuck. They still keep these things around just so that if something goes wrong that's clearly their fault, they can say it's not. That's why I got into an argument with a fascist, and that was the day I learned that fascists and monarchists cannot get along long term. So if we ever have an alliance with them, it's going to be very, very short term. But he tried to argue that Hitler had all the power. And I'm like, okay, I don't deny that. He had all the power in his regime, but he still wasn't the only power. And this guy couldn't understand what I was saying. There's a difference between being the supreme power versus being the only power. Like, you are literally the power. Like, when you think of the phrase, like, in the name of the king, what do people think that means? It means by his power. Literally. There's only one person in the land with actual power. Everyone else is just living by it, or they're helping him enforce it. But no one actually like decides the rules on their own except the king.
Yeah,
But with like dictators in communist and fascist regimes, they keep the assembly around, all the committees and all that bullshit. They keep those around just to have someone to blame. In a monarchy, there's no one to blame. There's just one person. Period.
I mean, yeah. To build off of that, it's you see it in empires, monarchies, when like I forget what the position would be called, but when a messenger has like a message from the king and he's going to talk to another lord, even a craftsman, he's not going to say, "Well, I'm here, with the king's orders." He's going usually come with an entourage, and he's going to, announce, "Here is the king's decree. Everyone stand before it while I speak. I speak in the king's name."
Yes.
Because it's not the person speaking. He is basically giving a voice to what the king has written.
Yep. And it's kind of hard to blame someone else when that is your system. When the only power in the land is the king. The king can't blame anyone else for something going wrong. And with dictators, they want to make sure there's always someone else to blame. That's the difference. That's why kings are not dictators by default. They don't share power in any way.
Yeah. Even that's true, because even kings rarely even like sharing power with the church.
There's a quote that I think is really applicable here. This might sound silly to some, but it's pretty good movie I'm referencing here. The character saying this makes a pretty good point. It's A Bug's Life, if anyone here has seen that.
Oh,
Hey, I
yeah.
have.
So, the scene where the villain Hopper's introduced, one of the first things he says when the Princess Ada is trying to explain why they don't have their food offering for them, well, the first thing he says, first rule of leadership, everything is your fault. So even when the elite and the people beneath the king mess something up or screw something up or do something that is antithetical to what they're supposed to do, that is still on the king to deal with accordingly.
Yes, because he didn't foresee it. He didn't take measures to stop it.
Yep.
And
So now he has to fix it.
one of the problems with democracy brain is that people just want to blame. Like, yeah, no one's perfect. No ruler does everything right all the time. But people only want to focus on when he fucks up. But it's unthinkable to thank him when things go well. No one wants to do that with their leaders. Democracy just makes everyone just complete fucking narcissists. Because
You actually
it's
make a good
healthy to
point
have
there.
someone to thank. Okay, you're not just blaming people all the time. Yeah.
You have a point there, because while I was looking up tyrants and the like, I'd come across letters where, and many of them, it would be, thank the emperor for whatever he had done, or thank the king this had been done. I think in the 34 years I've been alive, I have never heard anyone say, "Well, thank the president for doing this," or "thank Congress."
Yep. That's no accident. I honestly just don't see how anyone thinks democracy, because I do hear this all the time, how people think democracy is some unifying force. Blows my mind. Like, it, by definition, is divisive. Everyone has their own opinion. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. And it's power struggle, power struggle, power struggle. And people think, like, well, we're not literally at each other's throats. They think that means everything's peaceful under the sun. Everything is well. Everything is stable. Like, there's a reason democracies never last.
It seems like it's a feature and a significant flaw of just how democracy is structured, because right now, I mean, I know we're all just live in America. We live in a uniparty, but it's supposed to be two separate sides, because partisan hackery. But even so, it's like, naturally, because that is happening, it galvanizes the country, and so that in one way or another will prevent shit from being done that actually needs to be done. Political parties are fucking stupid. That's my point.
Yeah, why can't people want monarchy just for that? Just to simply no longer have political parties anymore. How is that too much to ask? Like, I'm just fucking sick of political parties. Why can't we simply, like, literally be unified?
But guys,
the reason-
then I don't get to vote.
The reason why that can never happen is just the abolition of political parties. It's like people like playing team sports, especially like the low IQs who can't see what these people are actually trying to push. They view it literally as like a sporting event. How flashy the campaign trail can get, right? Especially when like the RNC conferences or the DNC conferences, those get so unnecessarily flashy and cringe and gay. It's like, why do you need to do all this? Like, are you trying to make a serious event, or are you trying to make a show? And so, man, the whole democracy thing it just is another showcase that politics is the entertainment division of the United States government.
Yeah,
I
It's the
mean,
same
I
reason
think of it.
people lap up Disney and Marvel slop. They're impressed by the superficiality of it all and couldn't care less for substance.
Yep.
I mean, when you look at politics and when people say, "Oh, it unifies us," it actually doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
even
why I
if
say,
you-
like, we're not successful as a society, as a civilization, the West in general. We didn't become successful because of democracy. We became successful in spite of it. Like, I think it's a miracle, if anything, that we've remained stable relatively for this long. People don't realize, like, how much foundation was necessary for the system we have now in the West. We needed all the traditions, Christianity, everything that came before. We needed all of it laid down, and then we can basically have this giant social experiment called democracy. And lo and behold, like every democracy, it starts to crumble after 2 centuries. But
Yep.
without those foundations, we wouldn't have lasted even this long. But the strongest foundations, just like with communism, no matter how strong your foundation is, it's going to crumble because the system is not built for stability. Basically, it's built for, democracy is just meant to make people happy. Just get them to shut up. Like, here's a pacifier. You got to vote. So here you go. And that's it. It's not built for any kind of growth. It's not built for any kind of stability. It simply exists to satisfy basically stupid people and to give the elites no accountability. My pitch, and I don't know why this doesn't change anyone's minds. It should, if anyone has a brain. This should change your mind. This should convert you to monarchy. What is monarchy? You give the elites a boss. The elites have someone to answer to. How is that not appealing? People would still...
then the boss doesn't have anyone to answer to. He needs to have an answer.
Well, I mean, he answers to the elites, though. Like, he still depends on them. It's kind of a mutual, like, I don't want to piss you off, you don't want to piss me off kind of situation. But, like, people would rather vote than the elites simply having someone to give them orders. It's astonishing. Like, you filling in a little circle on a piece of paper doesn't tell the elites what to do. How do people think it does?
But I'm filling the circle and the guy get in office.
My guy who's going to change things because
Literally
I
their
just know it.
logic.
I mean, it's like I was saying earlier. between a king and the elite. It's a contract. The elites keep the king relatively in check so he doesn't go too overboard, and the king makes sure the elites stay where they need to be.
Yeah, a mutual healthy fear of each other. It's a good thing. Because the king can't
It is.
rule alone. He can't rule without the elites. You know,
Yeah.
mutual fear, mutually assured destruction, in a way.
And to go a bit, I guess, slightly earlier with what you were talking about with democracy and people calling it a unifier, it isn't, because looking at this from the elite perspective of a democracy, if you're running a country with however many people are in Congress or whatever, what helps keep you in your position? Everyone, all the regular people looking at you, without fighting and bickering amongst each other, or no one looking at you and the people at each other's throats. I mean, so it kind of makes sense that, you know, there's incentive for a democracy to, I don't know, I think the best way to put it would be to stir people up.
I gotta say, something that kind of popped into my mind now. I think democracy is inherently destabilizing.
Yeah, it's
That's
left
just
wing
me.
by nature. It's a left wing philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, like, just so people relatively understand what I'm trying to tell them, I'll refer to the right and, like, I mean conservatives, but I'll just kind of lump them in with the right. But in actuality, conservatives are absolutely left wing. They are not right wing at all. They're just lefties who want to stay soft about it. Like,
They want slower change.
why can't we have equality via freedom, or why can't we have equality via, like, everybody's rich or something?
The
But
E word.
it always breaks down into, well, if you still want equality, you're going to have to bring force into it. Democracy is just I think of yeah, democracy is just
Why can't
socialism but slower. You're just starting off from a softer place, but it's you're going to bring hard power into it no matter what.
it's also the why can't we have freedom without responsibility mindset as well?
Oh
Never
yeah.
mind how nebulous of a definition that has become, both freedom and responsibility. But I think it was Mussolini who said this, and I've definitely heard Spoon reference it quite a bit, and maybe a few others as well. Is that liberty is a duty, not a right, and that's something else that most people don't understand. Since yes, liberty, at least I like to think liberty is a good, for the people of a nation. The problem is we treat liberty like we treat freedom instead of responsibility.
Basically. And then also, kind of going off what you said, autist. I couldn't help but notice some of the parallels with the lulberts. Like, man, damn it! I just had a brain fart.
Yeah.
Um, oh, with all this stuff about how people are just we're free to do whatever we want without any of the responsibility that entails. It's like you do have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to your community, your country, your family.
And
But
their choices.
that's only if the country is actually worth serving, which currently it absolutely is not.
The other funny thing too is that when people start treating liberty like freedom instead of responsibility, they lose it anyway. they don't get to keep it; they lose it when they think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we may have brought this up on one of the other times we all met up, but I guess just to reiterate it, since we are live streaming, and this is to all three of you, if I just, let's say, handed you an award that says first place for whatever random subject, would any of you appreciate that?
Not
First
at all.
place, just being awarded a trophy
Yeah.
for nothing.
Yeah, just for
Yeah, I
breathing.
feel insulted.
But yeah, okay, and then look at, I guess to drag this back into monarchy, look at the nobility, look at the king. They're not given power. They have to earn it. And what does that usually mean when you earn something? You appreciate it. You
Mm-hmm.
have responsibility to it.
Yeah, most
Even-
lottery winners become broke within 5 years. It's human nature that we take care of something better if it's ours, like truly ours. And if something is just thrown your way, just here you go, you don't even think of it as yours. You think of it as like, well, I can do with this whatever I want now. It's not really
Yeah.
part of me. It's just something I can use now.
I mean, a good example
Yep.
is how they use the U.S. like taxes and the money they get every year.
Oh, for bullshit, and spend it on bullshit.
They just get money, they just spend it willy-nilly. So, like you said, yeah, on bullshit. It's not theirs. They didn't earn it, so who cares what they spend it on is their mindset.
Yeah, power and responsibility are one and the same. And one of the reasons that democracy brain is such poison is because people think power is just it's nothing more than a means to an end. Just I want this result, so let's force it. When how can you be responsible for something without having power over it? And what is the point of power if it's not also connected to responsibility? They have to be one and the same, and if you don't treat it that way, you get nothing but disaster every time. And so how do you make people responsible with power? You make them earn it somehow. You also give them pressure to use it responsibly. But if it's just a popularity contest, like, well, I got the people to vote for me, and that's it. And also, no matter how much you fuck up, you're not going to be thrown in prison for it. The Epstein list has kind of proven that, and COVID proved that too. So they know they'll never be punished for anything. They know that all they have to do to get this power is to just get people to like them for just long enough to vote for them. That's all they have to do. And we expect the greatest among us to rule us this way.
I mean, to make a, I guess, simpler analogy or situation, I mean, take a family, and let's say the kid wants a pet. The parents tell them, yes, you can have a pet, but you have to take it out, you have to feed it, make sure it has water. How many kids, bear that responsibility? I don't know the statistics, but I'm going to assume very few. And who does that responsibility usually fall on when the kid fails? The parents. I kind of view it all like that. If you as the citizen in a democracy, you're the child saying, I want a pet. And except, we don't have a king. There's no one there to pick it up where you fail.
Yeah, so we all pay for it, not just the king. Yeah, the funny thing about democracy versus monarchy is I do still think of monarchies as a form of or the succession of kings. I kind of think of them as a form of elections. It's just life and death. I am absolutely in favor of, if the king is doing a shit job, take him out. I'm in favor of
Oh, me too.
I'm in favor of get rid of the monarch.
Heck yeah.
Just don't get rid of the monarchy. That's the key difference
I
here.
mean, that's usually how it went in history.
Yep.
Okay, may I ask you something since you've been reading up on this a lot recently?
Sure.
So when there were actual tyrannical kings, whenever there's people who have risen up to dethrone them, how often has that charge been led by one of the successors?
More often than not. The only
That's what I
time,
figured.
the only times a successor would not be leading it is when they're like young. They're a child, and it's usually nobles who then lead the charge and put the child on the throne or whoever's going to
Right,
sit
but
there.
but generally,
But
when the
generally,
monarch is not doing his duty and he has successors, usually, more often than not, one of them will recognize that their father is not doing their duty the way they're supposed to, and therefore it falls on them to rise up and do that job for him.
most often that is usually the case. Or if they don't realize it because they're too close, because I mean, I think even us, with maybe some of our family, we may not see what other people see. So even then, occasionally, the nobility will go to the heir and say, here's what's going on. Please, can you do something and fix this?
And that's good to keep in mind, then, isn't it? Since something that I think that, gosh, I'm sure we were just discussing this earlier this stream or on other times we've talked about this. But another neat thing about monarchies and how they function and how one monarch passes and the next one comes to be is that it is all within the family unit. It is the that's really what it comes down to. It is the family unit that sets the example for the other family units of the kingdom to be. That's why it's one of many reasons why they're there and work the way that they do.
Yeah,
It's
they're not
every
just the unifying
past gener-
force. They everything flows down from them. They're not just the source of stability for the nation. They lead the nation in every way. This is how you're supposed to live. Everything.
I mean, that's why it's called
Yep.
that's why it's called a royal family or an imperial family. The emperor or king is the father, the empress or queen is the mother, and then you have the royal children.
And it
It's
just
all
comes to show
family.
like, how childish our society is, like everyone in it, because everyone thinks that giving someone, one person or an entire family, that much power is just, here's a bunch of privileges, just here's money for no reason, here's power for no reason. Now we worship you, spoiled brats. Like, no one thinks of it as, these people bear a responsibility. Okay, stop getting your information from movies and shit. Like, this is a very real burden. Wielding that kind of power means everything is your fault, as we already established. Everyone's looking at you. You have no one else to blame. It's a heavy burden. They have to keep themselves in line. They have to, because everyone's looking at them. They have to watch each other and themselves to an unimaginable degree because everyone's looking to them.
Yeah, and I think this was the last time we all got together, and to bring up, I guess something that it always gets misconstrued in most, I guess, entertainment depictions, except a few. Like with Marie Antoinette, with that line of let them eat cake. That was never said, and I think it's only from what I've seen and from what you've told me, it's only in the most recent movie where they specifically said that was something she never said.
Yeah, they actually acknowledged that, and I was very proud of them. Thank you for addressing that. What's her name? Kirsten Dunst, Marie Antoinette movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Like I've at least one video game I've played, which is the Fate Stay Night mobile game. They depict what she really is in that game, and both in reality and the game, that she was a very generous woman towards the poor. She looked out for the people. Where if you look back on any other entertainment or in history, they just drag her through the mud.
Since
The
we're on the
Fate
topic of,
series is it's definitely quite the series. I'll tell you that much. You guys know who Astolfo is?
yes, but that's getting us really off topic.
I had to mention it because Fate was referenced. I had to.
Well, I was thinking, gosh darn, you guys just said what her name was, and I'm already forgetting how to pronounce it.
Marie Antoinette.
Yes, her. Thank you. Something I never understood growing up, and this is under the assumption that she actually did say this. Let them eat cake. That's somehow taken as a slight that when France is starving, she doesn't want them to eat.
Uh,
I don't know. That's just something I
No,
always found very
no,
odd.
it's a slander of like how detached the elites are from the suffering of the people. Like what people are griping about is that they're not allowed to eat dessert or something. It's
This
it's
still
it's
doesn't
an
make sense.
insult. It's an accusation of that's how detached they are from us. How unlike us they are, how little they care about us. They think everyone has all of their luxuries. Yeah, it's one of the highest forms of insult. That's what it means.
you want to know?
Okay.
Yeah. Would you all like to know something interesting about that specific phrase beyond that? It's beyond that fact it's false that she said it.
Do
Sure.
tell.
Yeah.
The phrase was made, like written or whatever, by someone when she wasn't even in France. She was still in Austria at 9 years old when that phrase was first created, and then it was just attached to her later on.
Wow.
That seems rather dishonest, to say the least. Not
Well-
from what you were telling me, but more just like the fact that people ascribe that quote to to her like before the French Revolution.
Well, it wasn't ascribed to her before the revolution. It was just a phrase that existed, and then the Republic propaganda at the time basically said, this will track as most propaganda does, and then just gave it to her.
That's interesting. I didn't know
see.
that.
Yeah, I
Yes.
saw that.
Fascinating.
I am, for our detractors out there, some of whom will watch this, I will throw them a bone here. I think to some extent, the monarchs who fell, not all of them, but monarchy in general, like a lot of them were fucking up really badly. Like, for example, France supported the colonists in the American Revolution when they couldn't afford it in the first place. They were already broke, and just to give England the finger, an even bigger finger, they're like, yeah, we'll throw money that we don't even have toward these colonists rebelling against England. Like,
I mean,
lots of examples of the monarchs of the time they were really careless in a lot of ways. Not all of them, but things like that just kind of made me go, yeah, maybe some of this was deserved. And Autist, I don't remember when I heard you say this. Maybe might have been in private, might have been on one of our streams. I don't remember. But you said you believe that the American Revolution was not only justified but deserved because George III was not a true monarch. That the people, both in England and in the colonies, didn't have that unifying force because he was just a figurehead, a useless figurehead. Parliament was, the real power, as they still are today. And since there was
Right,
no
it was against the Parliament.
yeah, and since there was no, the colonists had no representation in Parliament. That wouldn't have been an issue if George was a true king, because he would have been a king for all. But since it's an assembly where
Exactly.
you need representation, if people don't get that representation, they have justification to gripe about it and rebel against it even. And I've come to agree with that. Like, it was a well-deserved rebellion for that reason, because Parliament was the power.
Yeah,
But if it
especially
was a
when-
king, if it was a true king ruling over England and its territories, it would not have been justified at all.
Well, that's not even to say that everything that went down was the right way that they did it, as far as
Yeah, I don't
pulling
want to
off
make
the
it sound
American
like that.
Revolution. Right, but yeah, no, it's a yeah, that was my point, and that was on one of our discussions that you posted as part of the podcast clips. Anyhow, Kyle, your point.
I was just going to point out where the point you were both making, it makes sense, especially when both in England and in the colonies, they were all saying, you're the king, you need to do something. And yet he wouldn't or couldn't.
Well, when I was talking to Archaeosity about this a while back, my exact point was, unlike what we in the States are being told today, they did not rebel because the king was tyrannical. They rebelled because he was neglectful. He did not uphold what little duty and power he had, if he had any. Either he didn't or couldn't do so.
I mean, if you look at the details, he had some power. He could have acted. Chances are, though, it would have killed him, but he still could have done something.
I mean, like I said in my video about the subject, like, he could have done something, but Parliament would have retaliated like a motherfucker if he had. They would have removed what little power he had left. His hands were completely tied. But
I mean,
and I don't disagree with what he did and didn't do when the rebellion was brewing up. But what I also agree with why it happened. Why they rebelled in the first place. If they had a true king, it would have been completely unjustified. But since it was a parliament, the king is supposed to represent you. But when it's an assembly, you need to have representatives in the assembly. It's everything, that the natural order is flipped on its head when a group of people are ruling an even greater group of people. It's complete bullshit. So without that representation, you have no identity. And if you have no identity, then you're just like, well, then why am I taking orders from you? Now, granted, England or Parliament had, like I said in my video, they were justified in wanting the colonists to pay them more in taxes. But in the spirit of it all, was they're not truly unified. So why not go their own way? Bullshit reasons why it started, yeah. But in spirit, it was inevitable. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it was bullshit reasons. The primary reason they rebelled wasn't over taxes. It wasn't over what everything is said. The primary reason that they rebelled, apart from what you were saying, is Parliament declared what they wanted to declare on the colonies, and a lot of the colonies, their charters explicitly stated, this is the king's property. And when Parliament put their boot in
Hmm.
there, the people did
They
not like.
use they were basically they were usurping what little authority the king had over them.
Yes, that's how the people saw it.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, because they saw Parliament saying, "Oh, we're gonna tax you," and they're looking at their charter like, "Wait, this is the king's property. He hasn't told us anything."
The royalist position makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
because I'm not sure if all the ones the king specifically owned, but I know the New York charter explicitly was one of his.
It was basically a sucky wucky situation all around.
Essentially, that tends to be most things in history when it comes to politics.
But all in all, George should have been a true king. At the end of the day, that would have prevented all the bullshit. But
Yeah.
because everyone, like, I think of power dynamics, no matter the situation, I think of it as parents and children. How do you deal with people? How should people be ruled? Just all of it relates directly to how do parents rule their kids, or how should they. Similar to what Spoon said in one of his recent videos, I guess he doesn't post much lately, so this was from like a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, when he said that like education doesn't do shit. Like people just need to be ruled. Like it, that also applies to parents and children. Like no matter how much a parent teaches their child, like don't do this, this is bad, the kid's still gonna do it because they want to. The people are like that, and it doesn't change if you give them power, if you give them an assembly, a parliament or a congress. It doesn't change. They still act selfishly,
I mean,
and it's
yeah.
one of the reasons I hate assemblies.
I mean, people act selfishly. Education's not going to do much because, okay, you've educated someone. What does that change? And I'm not sure where I saw it, but I think it shows it perfectly. But let's say, scurvy. Let's say you've been a farmer in a specific area for 30 years. You'd more or less know the land in that area like the back of your hand, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then let's say the state, the government, whoever, they send out a scientist or a researcher to, I don't know, measure the water or whatever. You know, who knows how much money is spent on that? And then, they do all the work. Then that guy comes to knock on, your house, and and since I guess the river or stream is near your house, and he says, "Well, did you know there's this and this wrong with the water?" You know, now since you know the area, what would be your response to him?
Hmm.
But and let's say all the information he's giving you is basically saying the water is bad.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention for for a little bit. Uh.
Well,
Sorry about that.
to give you the short version, let's say you've been a farmer for 30 years. This scientist comes out to test the water for whatever reason, and then he comes to tell
Okay.
you, hey, did you know this water is bad? You shouldn't be using it.
Mm-hmm.
What would you end up telling him in response when he tells you that?
I I would say show me the evidence. Like what I'm the type of person who would ask, who would ask for that. It's like and show me the methodology. Can you replicate it? And then maybe I might listen to you. if you could actually follow the scientific method and show me exactly how you did the study, um, and it has the same results, let's just say 10 times, then maybe I might heed what you have to say.
Well,
Okay, you're
my
giving the
response would be, what makes you think you know this better than I do?
That's
okay.
a good one too.
Scientist or not, what makes you think you know this better than I do? Like something I don't know yet, and you found this before I did, I would be skeptical at least.
Okay, you both gave different answers than what I was assuming, but in the thing I had read, the farmer had looked at the scientist or researcher and went, "Yeah, I know that water's bad. It's been bad for at least a decade." And
Oh,
the farmer
yeah.
didn't need to go through all that testing and everything. He's lived there long enough. He's not educated, but he still knows.
Yeah.
He could just tell just because he knew what he was doing and he was used to dealing with the water.
Yeah.
You
So,
notice you know something else that's funny? Sorry, if I cut you off there.
I'll go on.
So I remember my dad telling me a joke, and apparently it was a pretty common one in some of his work circles. And I promise I'm getting somewhere with this. And it goes, you have a farmer and you have a politician who comes out, and the politician's out there to check the weather, to make legislation or whatnot, just to determine whether or not it's going to rain or it's going to snow or whatever. And he has all these devices and all these methods. And then you have the farmer who comes to the same conclusion that the politician did, and all he had to do was look at the sky. I bring that joke up, and the fact that I was telling my dad, a working man, and some of his, um, and the fact that that's the kind of joke that is pretty regular in working circles. People already understand that they know what they are doing in the roles that they have more than the people above them who have their own roles to fulfill. And yet we insist that everyone else who doesn't know this thing as well as, say, I do, or there's one particular thing, they have as much of a right to a say as to what should happen as I do regarding any given matter. And that's basically how we look at, the right to vote and the voice and will of the people. We already understand that people have different things they're good at and typically perform the roles that they need to fulfill those tasks for the benefit of themselves and everyone around them. Yet when it comes to politics, we insist that isn't the case. Somehow everyone knows what they're doing.
You make a good point, and I guess to illustrate that better, to, I guess, move back to the farming thing, I guess, or any craft, let's say someone's been doing for years. Just imagine someone doing that, and then you just have this random person just come in and says, "Oh no, you're doing that wrong." It's kind of the same situation.
Well, that's what I meant by my response, which is like, huh? Like just utter skepticism. Like, what makes you think you even know what you're talking about? That's what my answer meant in essence.
Yeah, mine too. That's why I decided to go about the whole. Well, you'd better prove that to me. It's more of a response of, uh, I'm more so just kind of testing the person. Chances are, it's like, oh, if I already know the water is bad, it's like I'm just basically trying to waste the other person's time.
You know, one of the great things about Monarchy, it makes everything, because
Simpler.
like we established with like the royal family, it's a family thing. But everything in a monarchy is personal. It's personal and spiritual, and that will always supersede the experts. I mean, didn't COVID prove the experts don't know anything? Like that should have
Basically.
shattered everyone's worldview of like, trust the experts. They wouldn't have to tell us that if the experts, quote unquote, could be trusted.
Which they
Scientists can be bought off just as much as any politician. But when you know your area, you know the people in that area, and you are more likely to know your neighbors and whatnot in a monarchy than what we have now, which is you don't even know your next door neighbor. When everyone knows each other, they know the land, it's all very personal. They will understand that better than anyone from the outside coming in and telling them what to do. A king doesn't even have the incentive to interfere in your lives. It's one of my oldest clips on my channel. That one historian guy who started the whole Churchill was a villain. I forget his name. But I have a clip on my channel of him saying, like, just name any king, no matter how powerful they were or how powerful you think they were, their ability to just go into a town and tell everyone what to do down to the last detail was very limited.
I mean, even then, the king was far too busy to even think about doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, he had better things to do. Just there's no reason to do that when you're the king. You have a reason to do that when you have a vast, bureaucracy that has its claws in everything. They have an incentive to do that, not a king. A king is only one guy. He only has so many hours in a day.
I mean, yeah, the king would sooner, send a message to the local lord saying, "Hey, I had all this in a report. Deal with it."
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I want monarchy to return, because I want everything to be personal again. Instead of everything being about bringing a utopia and there's a billion different opinions on what that would even look like. Just fuck utopia. I want us to have families again. I want there to be like family businesses again. I want everything to be personal and spiritual again. I'm sick of the utopia shit.
Oy vey, Goy, we have a bit of a problem here. You don't like multiculturalism? Well, that's too bad. We're gonna add more of it, Goy. We like utopia. We like the fact that Goy. I can't go too much into it.
I mean, is it really a utopia? I have yet to see very many people happy.
Well, everybody's
That's where it always
happy,
leads.
don't you know? You have to be happy in my system, in Shekel's system.
Don't make
Well,
me go visit
back
that temple.
Well, back to what Archaeosophy was saying. That actually ties back to something you said earlier on today's stream about how, and I'm paraphrasing you because I don't remember exactly how you put it. Monarchy is basically sensible libertarianism when you really think about it, and I know it's not just me because I have some leanings there, but otherwise I used to be a libertarian, but I got to monarchism by entertaining arguments and positions promoting monarchy to a libertarian appeal. That's when you really think about it, is it any wonder that so many monarchists used to be libertarians? Since we've realized that yes, this way of doing things we like in theory, but in practice, there's nothing to protect it.
Yeah, that you raise a good point.
Yeah, we don't want someone hovering over us telling us what to do. That's not being a monarchist. It's a system. It's not about I just want a boss to tell me how to live my life. It doesn't work that way. If I wanted that, I'd be a communist because they excel at that shit. I want someone who is too busy, too preoccupied, has better things to do than to tell me how to live so that I can just simply live my life. That's my fantasy here.
I gotta say that is a pretty good fantasy. I guess for me it's just like I I like being able to actually pursue the things that actually matter to me, which matter to let's be real, that matter to most people. Like wanting to have a family and raising that family to be a strong a strong unit, and also I mean, I'm not trying to get all like idealistic or whatnot, but my point ultimately is it's like at least in a monarchy it's like I would actually be able to truly excel in that kind of system, like because there's not much that I truly have to worry about. Like I like having a low stress lifestyle, but I also like something that's fulfilling. And by low stress, I'm not saying that like I wouldn't be doing hard work. That's retarded. I would be doing hard work, but it would be stuff that I actually care about that would also contribute to the society. Like even something like farm work. It's hard. It's grueling, but it could also be very fulfilling.
Yeah, see, one of the great lies about capitalism is like we're supposed to be inventing things and shit and selling and selling and selling, and that's how you contribute to society, when in reality the healthiest thing you can contribute spiritually, physically, all of it, is have your own family, make as many kids as you can, raise them as best as you can, then they go out into the world and do the same. That makes the best people. That makes the best products. It makes the best everything, not capitalism. Capitalism is just what sells. And you can have the biggest, like, a snake oil salesman can become rich. Does that mean he contributed anything? Have you guys seen that video? Have you seen that video of this guy selling his own brand of helmets, and he's like smashing other brands and like telling people like this is how easily they break? Have you seen that video?
I don't think I have.
No.
I'm not sure about this one, but there's plenty like what you're describing.
He's taking helmets made by other people, smashing them against spikes to demonstrate how easily they break, and then he tries to do it to one of his own helmets and it doesn't break. And that's his sales tactic. He's trying to tell people like, hey, my helmet doesn't break so easily. And his audience, you can see it in their faces. They're like, oh, yeah, that's good. When in reality, helmets are supposed to break. But that's not what sold, was it? What sold was people thinking they're not supposed to break. Oh, breaking must be bad, so I'll buy your product. So this guy sells his products. He's popular, all that shit. But was it a better product? No. So capitalism's bullshit. But when everything is personalized, basically when your neighborhood makes your bicycle helmets, you're all gonna know, or at least to some extent, you're all gonna know how they work. And you'll be able to sniff this guy out immediately. Like, wait, no, that's not how you do it. You're full of shit. We've been making helmets for 100 years. We know bicycle safety in our town. Like, nothing is personal in our system, democracy or capitalism. It's just about popularity. It's all a popularity contest, from the things you buy to the people you interact with and why you interact with them in the first place. It's all popularity. Just appeal to that, reward center in your brain. That's all it is. And that's why everything's fake, everything's a lie, and everything's gay. I want to go back to a more personalized system, and Monarchy excels at that.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. Like, I'm not just saying that to agree. It's like I truly believe in that.
So,
but the libertarians are going to be like, oh no, and Razor Fist is going to be like, you monarchucks you don't actually care about that. You just want to lick the boot of the government. I'm so creative, edgy, and original. I'm Razor Fist.
Yeah, I don't regret our little video about him. Don't regret it at all. My views haven't changed.
As a matter of fact, haven't your views on him actually been, bit, don't you think of him a little worse after, especially since some of the shit he's been saying as of late, especially towards monarchists?
I mean, he was doing that
Uh,
before already. I mean, that's one of the reasons we did a segment on him. He was already shit talking us, not us specifically, but just monarchists in general.
If
Yeah.
that guy ever tries to like shit talk me on our on our positions, like it's not gonna go well for him. I'll tell you that much.
He's definitely a true believer in the power of pieces of paper.
Yep.
I saw one of his rants recently on Twitter where he's like, no, the Constitution, basically saying the Constitution didn't fail. We failed the Constitution. I'm like, fuck off, you moron.
That is cuckold think.
Mind if I answer your question about thinking less of him, Scurvy?
Yes.
So keep in mind, I was a fan of his even well knowing he did not think highly and would sometimes go out of his way to poke fun at people of my face. But after we made that video, where even I started to think, I don't know, I mean, I thought you guys were fine, but was I maybe too harsh at poking fun and laughing at him? The things I've read on my timeline from following him since, I think I can say I don't regret it either. It's really hard to consider myself a fan of the guy for the stuff, as I even said in that clip, that he has his strengths, but he's
Does he?
propped up for things that he. Well, I didn't say whether or not they were few and far between.
I don't know. Possibly my views have gotten worse. I don't know. They've always been, or not always, but most of the time I've known about them, they've been rather close to rock bottom. Especially after he blocked me, I just thought, like, you have what, 300,000 followers or something on Twitter. I mean, shit, I can barely
That
keep
hasn't
up.
grown in.
I can barely keep up with my notifications, and I don't even have 300 followers. I don't know how the hell anyone deals with that many followers, to be honest. It just sounds like a headache. But I'm just one guy, and I commented on his stuff like once in a blue moon, and I say something about how democracy is stupid once, like, and the previous time I did was like months prior. Very infrequent interactions with this guy, and he spurgs out on me and then blocks me. I just think like, you have such a vast audience. I'm just some guy who just left some comment, and you become unhinged over that. Calling that childish is charitable. Like, that's worse than childish. I don't even know how to articulate how weak that is.
Something else to keep in mind as well, since you mentioned the size of his following, he has a similarly big following on YouTube. That's been very stagnant, at least for the couple of years I've been a fan of his. That has not fluctuated much at all. He's very much found what works for him, and unfortunately, oh gosh, I don't know if anyone else here actually follows the guy, but he brings up the issues with Chinese infiltration into our government. What's so funny about him bringing that up as often as he does is, yeah, of course, we have Chinese influence in our politics. We also have Russian. We also have people from all around the world, but mostly Israel. And of course, he can't mention that at all. No. They're our greatest ally. And I'm going to cut myself short here because we're alive. So
I saw
man.
just today. I saw that Steven Crowder interviewed Razor Fist, and at first I was like, "What the fuck?" But then I realized, oh wait, they agree on everything. Of course he would interview him. Of course, this shouldn't have surprised me. They're both really horny for Donald Trump. They both love democracy. They're both not a fan of monarchy. Like, of course they would interview each other. Why does this surprise me?
It's a double jerk.
And it's particularly depressing that that's what sells. And I've kind of learned from capitalism that if something is super popular, it's bullshit. Because whatever is easiest whatever is easiest to digest is slop. No matter what it is. It's basically fast food. And
What's
in the world of politics, what's popular? Oh yeah, the people this, the people that, freedom. That's how you know it's bullshit. Because it's easy for any moron to clap to that. When actually there's this thing called results. There's this thing called consequences. And when everyone's doing whatever the hell they want, whenever they want, not very good consequences come from that. But it's what sells. So that's why these people are popular. And that's just such a shame. I wish what was popular is the truth, but that's not human nature.
Yep. Man. What else? I know we definitely had some other stuff to talk about. I think Autis, didn't you send something to me on Twitter in regards to like that when I
yeah,
oh yeah, when I posted when I reposted that based Alice chick, that chick annoys me so much.
So I added you, all three of you guys on that on Zitter, because I saw you post that, but I also saw the conversation between you and Okairo that followed, and I thought that'd be really interesting to discuss for the podcast. So that's why, and then I did, and I thought, hey, possible podcast idea maybe. Of course, I'd like both you and Okairo to be here, but for that. But before Archaeosophy decided that we were going to make this stream, we were going to start out with I guess I wouldn't really call it preamble since we've been talking solely about Monarchy for the past 2 hours, or nearing that time, which has been great. But
That it
the
has.
original topic,
Well,
the original topic was also going to be abortion, since Archaeosophy, you had that one thread going down with that abortion defender. So we have abortion as a topic. We have
Then we also
pornography as a
have-
topic.
Yep.
yeah, we have a lot of things, a lot of things to discuss. I wanted to make this the topic though because I wanted some sort of like trailer episode kind of thing.
Oh.
So I would rather not deviate to something that's really only relevant to this specific moment in history. Like, is this going to matter in a week or a month? So I'd rather leave those topics out. I mean, we can
guess I
still
could
discuss
save
them,
my,
but I prefer not in this one because I want this episode to be a sort of trailer.
I guess I could save my shit talk of Alice for my stream on Friday because oh boy, do I have a lot of things to say to her that I've been holding back on. That's for
Well,
sure.
I was thinking we don't even have to bring up the drama behind it necessarily, just the points about abortion and pornography, and if anyone wanted to have room for discussion, they could do it on their own time, like Scurvy is you were saying just now about trash talking Alice. So that can definitely be its own thing. I was just thinking, we just give our thoughts on those topics.
Because I
But
will.
if you want to
say, I will say a singular point on the whole pornography thing. Everybody, all the libertarians that are complaining about the rather extreme UK law, which, yeah, it's a fucking mess, and of course it's not going to be enforced properly. And you know who's running the government. and all the people who are just spurging out about the American Kids Online Safety Act, which Cairo read through earlier and gave his insights on that before the stream started. All they literally care about is porn. That is all they care about. That's all that's on their minds. That's all they've ever been arguing about. They have not even talked about anything such as the UK's. They are going to try to clamp down on noticing. There's a whole bunch of other actual issues that they could be discussing that would actually be violating libertarian principles. But again, no, they don't argue that. It's just because they have no principles. They really don't. They want the ability to jack off without anybody getting in the way of that, and it's just so retarded. It really is.
Libertarianism is basically communism, but for the self. Like, I want to be able to do whatever I want, and I have no interest in forcing that upon you. Communism is just, I want to be able to do whatever the hell I want, and I also want to force that on you. I lump them all into the same thing. Basically, everything is left-wing except monarchy.
Basically. But that's I guess that's it for the point on porn that I wanted to make, and that whole law. But I guess we could get back on topic. I was bottling that up and I needed to let it out. So
Yeah, I guess if you want to save those topics for another time, then
I think
we'd have to plan accordingly.
We can let's have that. Let's have all of these topics be the next stream. I'm sure they won't each last 2 hours. So let's save that for the next stream. I think we're actually good for this one. We got a good 2 hours in talking about the basics of monarchy. So yeah, I think we're good.
I see.
Unless you guys had more to say, again, this, I wanted this episode to be a trailer episode. So the face, basically the face of the whole podcast. It's kind of long overdue. We never really had that. You'd think we would by now, but we didn't.
Yeah, that honestly is something.
I do want to ask something about that. Because of the episodes we've done, even though this is our first live stream, we've technically recorded 7 more other sessions. So do you still want to consider this the 8th episode, or are we just kind of doing a soft redo to where this is the new first?
Well, maybe episode is the wrong word, because as you can see from the title, I just want to do topics now, not really this is such and such episode. I just want to do topics now, especially now that we've switched to live. And it doesn't have to strictly be once a week either. It's just, whenever enough of us can and want to discuss a certain topic, let's just go live and start talking about it. I'm hoping that's what we can turn this into.
Honestly,
that
I
makes
can
sense.
see that.
Scurvy. Do you want to be the one who reads our chats?
Yeah, I did
official
see
chat reader.
Yeah, and I don't mind. Sorry, hit my my one of my roots on my table. Anyway, so Dusty, he's been chatting up a storm. Hi, Dusty. How are you? Let's see. Parents
Shout out to Dusty, by the way.
He's a cool guy. Parents should keep their kids off the internet. Personally, I think you should force them to be normal humans for a bit. Yeah, I'd say we could actually save chat for the end, and for like super chats, we'll read those first. But then for like actual chat, and we have like 5 people watching.
I kind of
That's
want
awesome, and it's
to. I
towards
kind
the
of want to
tail end.
save. I kind of want to save reading chats entirely for super chats, and since this channel still doesn't have 500 subs yet, and that's the minimum to have super chats, we'll just do the buy me a coffee link. So if you guys want,
Yeah.
your chats read and like we have a discussion on whatever you write, I'm just gonna make it so that it's like $5 and up, and we'll read your stuff. We'll make an exception for right now because it's just Dusty. So
Yeah.
we'll just read Dusty. But
Yeah.
in the future, that's what I want it to be.
And that's fine. I guess the reason why I brought that up, because I tend to read chat quite a bit in my streams, but I think for this, I think it is different than the Scurvy Rum show, so
A little bit.
there's that. A little bit. I'm not yapping as much. Wait. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
That's all right. We can also still shout out the rightfulrule.com link as well, just for anyone who wants to support us at all.
Mm-hmm.
It'll go towards the cause. It'll make doing this more viable for each of us to do in the long term, if that ever gets anywhere.
That's one of the reasons.
So if people want to donate,
that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this, as I just described with super chats. That's one of the reasons, because this is a lot of work for not getting anything for it. Like, it gets exhausting after a while. That's why we had to take a week-long break. Like, I think Okairo was actually the most excited for that. Like, oh, sweet, a whole week. We don't have to do this. Like, if we were getting plenty of support, it wouldn't be so exhausting, but we do it for free. And so at some point, like, we need a little something in return. So that's why everything I just said about super chats is the way I want it.
I see. But let's continue reading Dusty's chats, and then we could wrap this up.
Yeah, that sounds good.
yes, yep, works for me.
If you know the area and you know the water is bad, okay, you'd probably tell the guy, yeah, I know. Animals drink from the river, animals die. Birds avoid the river because they'll die. Don't use the river water. Avoid that water table. You're not dealing with the kind of anarchy we deal with now. Nigel West Dickens from Red Dead Redemption 1. Snake oil salesman. It's hyper consumerism, popularity brands. Buy now. Man, the amount of like importance people place on like stuff like Gucci bags, especially women. Women will love the whole brand name shit, unless it's like saving money on food. That's the one thing I noticed, that women don't really care if they're like spending an insane amount of money on. It's like food. They could get some really low quality stuff from their local supermarket, but then they'll just go out and buy all the fucking Gucci bags known to man. And in terms of food, they expect men to pay for food.
I have a whole rant about like how women basically are the driving force behind capitalism anyway. Like, without women just wasting shitloads of money every day, like, is capitalism even real? Is it even a real system without just them recklessly spending all of the money? Or not all of it, but most of it. I won't get into that,
really.
but capitalism's just bullshit.
I actually know the statistics. It's 70% of the women do all, like, in terms of purchasing power, it's 70% women.
There you go.
That one scene from Breaking Bad comes to mind. Where's the money?
I actually haven't watched Breaking Bad. I know that's basically a crime, but I still haven't gotten around to it. I've just seen clips.
I'm as guilty as you.
I watched that for the first time earlier this year, and Yeah, I can understand. I can understand the hype. I get why it's got as popular as it did. Would recommend.
All right, let's finish this up. Everyone who criticized Razor and have valid criticism are taking victory laps. Magical thinking, I don't know what that was referring to. Yeah.
It could be referencing many things, other things we talked about today. In all honesty,
So yeah, what's the like? When do you guys want to do this next? Actually, let's cut the stream and then we'll figure that out in private.
Alrighty. See you guys later.
See ya,
and
audience.
thank you for
people.
tuning in, everyone.
Mm-hmm.